What's up, party people, and welcome to Countdown to Crusade, where it's not my opinion on World of Warcraft that counts, but yours. Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining the show today. I do apologize that this one is a little bit late per se, given the nature of the content, and it's, reactions, and you expect them straight away, but we're a few days late. I've been a bit busy, but I can assure you that all the calls you're about to hear were recorded in the moment over the weekend while Blizzconline was taking place. And given that, I do want you to be a little bit lenient with us if you hear something that has since been addressed or that we've gotten more information on since the event, that we might not be, 100% up to date in these calls that we hear. But for the most part, it's all pretty good. Like I said, live in the moment reactions. We got 3 sets. First one from the listeners, second a short snippet from Kevin Jordan, and third another pack of listeners to hopefully cover a broad spectrum of reactions to everything we heard about the finally announced TBC Classic at Blizzconline. Enjoy. All right, we're recording a little bit of a at the last second breakdown of everything that you've all just digested through BlizzCon. And I'm sitting here with a bunch of listeners of the show. We were casually just watching the Burning Crusade Q&A session on Twitch. And now that that's done, I think that's pretty much all the information we're going to get about the Burning Crusade from this 2-day BlizzCon event. And there is quite a bit to break down, to be honest with you. I think that it was a resounding success in terms of the getting information. Regardless of what you think of the information that we got, I think we probably got maybe a little bit more than we were expecting. And I count that as a small win for the Classic community, to be honest with you. But I'm so happy to be joined by a bunch of people here, many of which have been on the show before. Let's just quickly say the hellos. Bawlsosteel, Mike, what's up?
Hey, Josh. Glad to be back on the podcast.
Great to have you here. Great to have you here, mate. And we've also got, I'm so happy to have this person back. You had like a Rookie of the Year campaign on your first episode, and now you're here for your sophomore effort. Pikseh, how are you?
Hey, dude. It's good to be back.
Very, very good to have you. TianSG, mate. Long time.
Yeah, man. It's been a little while since it's been on, but glad to be back.
Always good to have you. We chat off episode, but yeah, absolutely. It's good to have you, man. ZGaiden, hey, dude, what's going on?
Not too much. Thanks for having me.
Well, look, guys, let's get started. Let's get into it. Like I said, this one's going to be maybe a little bit scuffed because I've put it together at the last second. But look, let's start in reverse chronology, if you will, because we just got some huge news confirmed on the Q&A session that we just watched together, and that's about drums. And lo and behold, they have obviously felt the pulse of the community. They've seen what we've been writing, and they realize it's an issue. So Brian Birmingham came out and said, yes, we are absolutely going to be making a slight change to drums, whatever that slight change might be. It's still interesting to hear that that's very big on the block for them, and that they're not leaving it alone. They're actually going to adjust it somehow. So in the moment reactions, guys, Mike, I know you were absolutely over the moon about this, as am I, to be fair with you, but tell me how you feel about it.
I think it is basically one of the changes that, like, one of the big but not big changes that I wanted to happen with TBC. Now, to how they exactly change drums, I think it has to be enough so not everyone in your raid is going to have to go leatherworking. Well, I think
they made it sound. They made it sound like they weren't super concerned with like what it does, but they wanted to somewhat minimize the need for everyone to go leatherworking.
Yeah, that is the change I want to see. To minimize the need to have all 25 people, or I don't know, however, like the minimum requirement you need to have the 4 people in every group to have drums of battle in your raid.
It's funny because a lot of people would be on board with this change, but I think I heard Pikseh a slight lamentation in your voice that you kind of wish this one had stuck around. Is that right?
Yeah, but I also realized that I'm probably just an old gatekeeper in this regard. So I guess it's still good in the end. The thing I'm thinking about, honestly, is, in a meta where everyone needed leatherworking, at least the casters could say to each other, hey, we're in this together. But I'm feeling sorry for the poor schmuck in the caster group who has to be the token leatherworker now when the other guys gets to do whatever.
Well, the one question that's really come up from me from this information is what effect this might have economically on leatherworkers. And, you know, I know that drums had a bunch of charges in them and, you know, they were used, they weren't a one-off consumable. They were used a bit differently, and that affects the way that, you know, how many leatherworkers make of these things. But can anyone enlighten me on if this is a drastic change to the professional leatherworker and the way in which they go about their business?
I don't think so, because there's still a lot of really good crafted gear, especially for like rogues and feral druids. And even, actually, I think even in some pieces for hunters as well. There will still be demand there.
If anything, I think that being a feral druid now is going to be an easier time, because it's going to be easier for a skinner to farm the thick cleft hoof leather for the druid tanking gear, because people are not going to farm it to make the drums.
Hey, Tim, what did you make of it all?
Like of the drum thing specifically?
Yeah, were you happy?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I think definitely I generally like their mindset they've come into this, right, with like some changes. Because this was that interesting thing in the lead up to Classic. It was just like a very binary camp of you're either no changes or like all changes. But we've all come to realize, or most people have come to sort of the understanding of, nah, it's okay. Yeah. Like, let's have some stuff. And this is a good one, because like I'm definitely on the mic camp on this. If it's like, to follow up what they're saying of, it doesn't feel great when, if you want to min-max, every single person in your raid needs to be a leatherworker. In Classic, a lot of like min-maxing guilds require everybody to be an engineer for like similar sort of like requirement reasons, but it's not nearly as big, I think, as drums. And so the idea of them looking at that being like, okay, we still want drums to be powerful, but we'll just adjust in such a way where you want maybe 2 people in a group who are leatherworkers. And it just, you know, allows a little bit more diversity, lets people play a little bit more how they want versus like what's the best, you know, optimal way of doing things, which I'm always a fan of.
It does feel like Blizzard has, along with the majority of the player base, embraced that creamy center between, you know, changes and no changes into some changes, like you're saying. And I think this drum thing is really one of the biggest indicators of that, on top of a lot of the information that we got yesterday. It really feels like when they say some changes, they actually fucking mean it into stuff that's meaningful. It's not superfluous changes that we're talking about now. It's actually really meta-shifting stuff. And that excites me, to be honest with you. And we'll get onto the other stuff that we're talking about a bit later on. But ZGaiden, did you have any strong feelings on the drum changes? Were you one of the ones who were cheering it?
On the whole, I think it's good. I mean, professions are so much more important in TBC than in general they were in Classic. Everybody has at least one crafting profession that's important to their class. So to make everyone have a second crafting profession for drums, if leatherworking wasn't your profession, just for that, felt pretty bad.
Fair enough. Booth, are you back with us, mate? Can you hear us?
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry, thanks, mate. I lost you there for a second. I'll say my g'days. Booth, mate, welcome back, as always.
Hey, yeah, good to be here.
Mate, we were just talking about drums, and I've no doubt that, you know, you're someone who feels strongly about this as well, whether or not you've got something that we haven't said already, but just whether it's short and sweet. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up, for the most part. Like, my argument for drums is I'm completely two minds about it. One, I don't like using drums, and I'd never planned to use drums until Sunwell. That was my plan. 2, I want drums to be around just in case the content gets hard enough that you actually want to use them, like how they all re-rolled to drums back in Sunwell back in the day just for Marrow. I don't want to be left on a boss where it's too hard to beat without drums.
And sorry, pardon the pun, everyone, and particularly Booth, but you were beating your own drum about drums on the subreddit. So will this satiate you a little bit?
A At least it's settled now. I don't need to talk about it.
Right, okay. A little bit less angry typing, maybe.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, look, let's move on to some of the other stuff. I just wanted to tackle that one first because that was sort of the freshest news that we had on hand. But look, in that presentation yesterday that I felt was, a little bit cringy with the pre-recorded stuff and the way they talk to each other and act like they're finding stuff out for the first time, even though obviously they're not. It's still good to get the info that we got. And I think that a lot of things have been confirmed that were more presumed and obvious. Things like your 2.4.3. I mean, I don't even want to talk about that one. That was just pretty much always going to be the way it was going to go. At least we got the confirmation. They mentioned, the possibility of fresh classic servers after the launch of TBC. So, that's something. We didn't get a release date. So there's open speculation as to when the beta's coming and when the game is actually to be launched. There's not too much more to say about that, but the hefty stuff we got, I'm also thinking of, things like, sorry guys, I'm racking my brain now which one to talk about first.
The
seals. Let's start there.
That's
Progression.
Let's start with seals. We'll get to it all. All right. Joining us now, sorted out some mic issues. Surrealz, how are you, man?
Lovely. It's a pleasure to be on. Thank you, Josh.
Mate, happy to have you. Always happy to have people drop in. But Surrealz, if you like, I'll get you to kick us off on this one because I think the next biggest topic, and again, a huge indicator of how far they're willing to go with the changes to this game, Paladin seals. Like, it's something that everyone was asking for, but I really honestly think still a bunch of people will be surprised they actually did it. Seals for everybody. What do you think?
I think it's a fantastic, like you mentioned earlier, I think that the sum changes, that cream in the middle has been really refreshing and there's significant changes as well. And with TBC, as we know from previous podcasts, it would have been a heavy horde leniency on the server balance. So it's a real pleasure to see actually that it's not going to be completely Blood Elf Pallies, but it's going to be a nice balance across both factions.
That's the biggest thing for me, and I'll let you guys shout out now first in Best Dressed on who's the most passionate about this announcement. But just a quick thing from me, I feel like that's the biggest thing, that what it does to that Horde versus Alliance ratio. I think it's a huge addressing point. And look, a lot of people have been saying that the Paladin seals are not what's going to push people to the Horde. And I respect that, and I, ultimately accept that reasoning behind that. But I still think surely it's going to have a little bit of a dent in it somewhat now that they've done it.
When it comes to seals, like, Ret Paladins are still low in damage. You're only ever really going to bring one to a raid anyway. And as an Alliance player, like, I'll take any advantage I can get because Horde still have the massive advantage. But I'm in the camp that TBC should be preserved as it was. And if I was on the WoW team right now, on the Classic team, I'd be like, let's make them even, but let's not give them both each other's seals. I would be like, let's just buff Vengeance, maybe nerf Blood, and bring them in line.
So you're from the Kevin Jordan school of thought, which is keep them unique, keep them give them their own spice.
Yep, but tune them to be more balanced. That's fine. That's actually good.
Yep, fair enough. Tim,
I'd follow up on that as also as an old crotchety vanilla gamer. That one of the things that always was a little bit disappointing at the time with BC is just like the slow loss that happened over the course of WoW of like faction identity and class identity, right? Like, I know everybody complains about like Horde and Classic complain about not having Paladins to give them buffs, and Ally and Classic complain about not having Shamans to give them Wind Fury. But like, it is a cool part of your faction identity, right? It creates a sense of like Horde or a little bit more Zug, like heavy damage with the Wind Furies, but not as good on defense, and Alliance are a little bit more defensive, bubbles, all that stuff. And like, you lose that anyways in BC because, both factions are getting Shamans and Pallies. And you also lose some of that faction identity because everyone's just going to be in Shattrath, which is this neutral city that, you can't even have a fight in there if you wanted to. And then to then on top of it be like, and I understand the balance reasons for it, but it's also like, man, that's just a thing that's like, just small things that kept some of that faction identity that are being taken away. I think probably overall, like all the Paladin people I know seem super excited about it, so it's probably for playing reasons, it seems to be a good thing. But for me, as a little bit, the faction identity loss is a little bit sad.
Okay, anyone else on this one? Pikseh?
I mean, it complicates things for me because my plan was just to continue on my Hunter. But now that they're doing this change, I kind of feel like I need to re-roll this Paladin, right? Because that is just the coolest ever. But I mean, the funny thing is, if you're one of these pass lords that only care about being the best of the best, then if you're going to pass as a paladin, you're probably going to look to be a human warrior now to get that sword expertise, because Blood Elf paladins are not they don't bring anything passive from their race now.
Fair enough. Anyone else on that one before we move on?
Yeah, I don't really think that it will have a significant impact. And I do think it's interesting that when he brought that up yesterday I think it was the deep dive, he brought it up in the context of faction balance, and he did it again during the Q&A. He brought that exact same point up as part of addressing a question about faction imbalance on, largely I suspect, on PvP servers. And that's the only talking point that they have about faction balance at this stage. To me, that is actually a little worrying, that they don't have anything else in mind for that.
I think to them it's a very easy selling point. It's something a lot of people can understand. But I think if they're willing to do this, then it wouldn't surprise me either if at some point they say, okay, Will of the Forsaken and the PvP trinket is going to share cooldown now to further try and balance the factions.
Shh, Pikseh, shh, don't do ideas. Come on.
No, I'm a fan. I'll yell from rooftops.
I think you
I want undeads to get nerfed, right? Like, my Wyvern Sting doesn't work on 80% of the people I'm going to meet in the arena anyway, so.
All right. Guys, it's from that, it's funny because the thing, just on the faction balance thing, I would actually be more shocked, to be honest with you, as shocked as I was to see them do the seals for all the paladins. I would be more shocked to see if they actually took any further steps to try and, affect the faction balance. People talk about server locks or faction caps and things like that. I personally term that as more unrealistic, but, who knows? Let's move on to another huge spicy talking point from what we got, and that was the level 58 boost. Look, I had a bunch of predictions on the show. Don't get me wrong, some didn't come to pass. I thought there was going to be a box price on the game, and luckily I'm so happy to be wrong on this one. There's not. It just carries on as per usual. If you sub to the game, then you get access to retail and TBC. That's fantastic. But I did also think that we were getting a 58 boost, and not a 60 boost, a 58 boost, and that's exactly what we got. And this has really divided the community. I've said this on the show already, I'm not as egregiously offended by the concept of this as other people, but I completely respect the anger that people have towards it. I just somewhat disagree. How do you guys feel about it? Who's angry? Who's cool? Who wants to shout from the rooftops? Go for it.
Mike,
I'm
I know you have
pretty
strong
indifferent.
feelings.
Nope, I'm containing myself right now.
Don't hold back, Mike. Don't hold back.
Mike's counting to 10 slowly.
Okay. I mean, let me throw some fuel on the fire then. I think it's totally fine. I think it's all right. And honestly, I've leveled 4 characters to 60 now. I haven't boosted any of them, and I've seen the content now. Like, if I want more people or more characters at max level, I don't need to go through those steps again. And if you're the kind of guy that don't really like the way vanilla worked out, but you really love arena, then it doesn't hurt my feelings if you can get a boost to 58. Also, let's keep in mind that those people that actually level to 60 and like doing endgame raiding right now, they're going to have a major advantage even at level 70. Like a lot of tier 3 gear and stuff from Naxxramas, you can easily go into tier 5 content with that gear. So, I mean, it's not that big a deal.
It's boost isn't available during the pre-patch, right? It's just
we don't know. We don't know yet.
Yeah,
but you can make a guess. Yeah.
But I will say I'm happy that you can't use the boost on Blood Elves and Draenei. That's I feel like that's an important detail.
Mm. And we'll get to that topic next for sure. Sorry, Surrealz, go for it.
And it's only limited to 1 per account, isn't it?
That's right. So that's what I wanted to dive into here, because they have said that it's 1 per account, okay? Everyone gets their one shot. Now, there's a few things to break down from that, though, because there's different crowds that we're discussing here, because like you said, Pikseh, there's the people who have leveled multiple toons to 60 already and have been there and done it all and might be like, look, I am ready to leave the leveling experience behind. I feel like I've done my time. I'm happy to pay for a boost if it means skipping the content, which I know back to front already anyway. Then there's this second crowd of the new players who maybe aren't as interested in TBC as the others, but they have had their interest piqued and they're like, well, I want to play with my friends and check it out. So this really works for me, a 58 boost. And then people can feel how they want to feel about that. A lot of people still do have the mindset of, no, you have to do your time with the leveling experience, so to speak, before we'll, accept you as a max level. That's just, some comments that I see around the subreddit and things like that. Then you've got this third crowd of the gold farmers and the bots.
Yep.
And that's kind of one thing I wanted to dive into now on what effect it has on them, because people are commenting, and this is something that should come up obviously already. It's easy enough for the bots to jump in and do what they want to do. If you start up an account, you bot, you get your gold. If you get banned, you just buy another account, you just buy another boost on a new account. There's nothing stopping you from just rolling it over and over and over again. People have been asking the question, well, does the return on investment actually work out for the gold farmer if they do that? I think the resounding answer is absolutely. It's a pretty small entry cost to be able to get yourself up and running as a gold farmer. But I'm not well versed enough to necessarily say that definitively. How do you guys feel about how the boost will interact with the botting situation in the game?
They haven't said anything about the price yet, right?
No, but I mean, let's say we guess the $20 or whatever.
I think it's going to be closer to 40, to be honest.
Okay. Well, the boost in retail is $80 Australian.
Are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
How much is that in UK?
Maybe 45, 50 pounds.
Wow.
Oh, okay, that changes my mind a little bit. I honestly, for some reason, just presumed it was quite cheap.
I need to say, it's the devil's work, but an Argentinian character boost is $20 American.
Right. Pikseh, you were going to say?
Yeah, like when we talked about the predictions in the last podcast, we talked about the idea of maybe there being a box price for TBC and how that could deter bots because there would be an upfront cost to starting off. And I feel like a price tag on a boost is going to do the exact same thing, especially if it's going to honestly be pricier than most AAA games.
That's the thing.
You go, Booth.
Bots are just going to bot their way to 60.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I also think this will be. I think there's going to be an increase in multi-boxing from this, because and not just among bots, although I mean that's already a thing, but amongst the just general players. Because imagine if you're sitting there, you've already used a boost for one alt, right? But maybe you're sitting there being like, oh man, you know what I really want? I want a Warlock alt because they're such high damage dealers, or maybe I want a Shaman or whatever. And you're like, okay, well, I already used the boost, so I'd have to level up this guy. Or, you know what? I just buy another account, cheap enough, and buy the boost, and there you go. I think there's going to be an increase in people having multiple accounts, which is a thing that Blizzard actually absolutely probably recognizes and absolutely wants.
Just very, very short and sharp from what you just said, Tim. I feel like I'm a bit out of the loop because I've always surmised the opposite. I always felt like bots don't use multi-boxing. Am I way wrong on that one?
Depends how see multiboxing because they can have 5 instances of the client and 5 instances of bots, and it's multiboxing from a simplistic understanding.
Oh, right. Not the way we're used to seeing it in terms of 5 characters trailing each
because
other.
Because when real people use multiboxing, they use broadcasting software, which sends like your W key to all the clients at once.
Yeah.
Okay, got you now. I'm with you. Well, look, guys, back to sort of away from the bots, but just back to the boost in general. Does anyone have any strong feelings against the boost for the players? Does anyone feel like this robs the world of people getting their experience up with the class, becoming well skilled at a certain class, or just not really earning their wings, so to speak?
I definitely think so. I think there's actually going to be like even way more people playing TBC Classic. Because the amount of new players I just saw with Vanilla Classic was already way bigger than I ever thought. And then TBC Classic I think is going to be even bigger. And just the people that are just that have never played before, want to play with their friends, are going to get the boost, get to 58, and they're just going to be, I think they're just going to be overwhelmed with everything. And they're just going to, we're just going into a dungeon with your little 58 character. And you're like, huh? What do I do? Like,
yeah.
And I think it is a rite of passage to level. Maybe I'm just crazy.
Go for it, Surrealz.
Yeah, jumping in on that was, some years ago. It might have been around Burning Crusade. You remember when it was the recruiter friend bonus, triple XP?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And I remember me and my teammates got another friend involved, and we said, oh, look, you can get triple XP. So we just completely quest boosted him right up to 60. And then we jumped into a Scholarmance, and he was just keyboard turning, not having a clue how to cast Frostbolt.
Hey. Some of us still keyboard turn here, okay?
Shame.
I know.
Shame. But
I'm so ashamed.
He really was overwhelmed in those situations.
And I think it's good that kind of stuff, like, it probably still happens now, but I think it's going to be even far more prevalent with TBC Classic now because of the 58 boost. There's going to be so many new people that are going to have no clue what the fuck they're doing.
I honestly doubt it. Like, how many people are going to go into TBC, a 13-year-old game, and be like, what is this about? I feel like a very high proportion of people playing TBC know something about either TBC or Wrath or some other version of WoW already.
Well, there are going to be completely fresh players to Classic. Most of them are people who have already played the game.
Yeah, that's true. I ran across the unicorn the other night. I patted myself on the back for doing a good deed the other night. On Aragorn, I started new characters to fuck around for a couple of hours, and I bumped into someone who was doing the Vanquish the Betrayers quest. Well, they thought they were going in the wrong direction. I was like, hey, you're doing this quest, it's over this way. And they were like, I just found out about this. I've never played WoW before. And I was like, oh, okay. And I showed them the ropes for an hour. And it was really, really rare to run into someone who had no idea whatsoever, has never experienced the game in one way, shape or form before. I agree with you that, most people do kind of usually know what they're on about when they venture into this classic realm.
Every time I've leveled up an alt, I've always run into players who are like new. And are just like, I haven't played this before, haven't tried this before, I'm trying with a friend or a partner or whatever. It's actually, as Mike said, it's one of the more surprising things for me is even like I have a level 17 warrior I've just been messing around with occasionally for fun. And it's less common, but I still have run into a couple people who are like new to the game. Yeah. And like, assuming they're not lying to me, it's some like very elaborate troll.
Yeah. Well, I mean, naturally, I did the right thing with this guy the other night and just let him out to the middle of the ocean, told him he could breathe forever, drowned him, and then left and called him a dick. So yeah,
100%.
Do that.
I think though that's fair enough though in terms of what Mike was saying. But today I was doing an Upper Blackrock Spire run, and there was a Warlock. I said, "Oh, can I get a summon?" And the first thing he said was, "What's a summon?"
Yeah.
Hang on, that's suspect. We finally got there, and he was fully equipped in healing gear.
A good start. A good start. Go for it, man.
Oh, so I was just gonna note that like one thing for me as well, not just like the players who are like get to max level and then don't know what they're doing. I seem to be a relatively uncommon person in that I really love the leveling experience in vanilla.
Same.
I just there's something very just like calming and relaxing. I don't know, but I just like it. I like how long it takes. I like the process of it. It's great.
I love it, but we're in the minority, mate.
Exactly. But like,
I'm in that boat as well.
Yeah, I like
well,
leveling.
look at that. We gotta create a club.
I've leveled 460s, I agree. But I'm curious as to why they didn't add a previous level requirement on it.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, that would have been nice. For sure. I think the other thing for me too is that like already right now it's like if you're leveling up a character, the world feels a little bit more empty because so many people use boosting. But like this is going to be even worse. Like Azeroth is going to be a ghost land. At BC, it already kind of became that later on, especially. But there was still like you'd still go out there in BC. I remember like leveling up my shaman all the time, and there were plenty of people to like do quests and dungeons and stuff like that. It wasn't like really crowded, but like it's gonna be nobody. Like it's just between any boosting that still exists and the actual bot boosts. That's something that I'm sad about.
I think the level requirement is something that I have no doubt would have been thought of. The reason I think it's not there is this is, in my mind, purely there to nail people who just aren't particularly interested in TBC and wouldn't have played if the level boost wasn't there. This is for retail players. This is for people who are going to dabble for a month or two, have their fun and leave, but Blizzard will make a boatload of money off of those people. That's why there's no level requirement, because then you shut it off for them if you gate it behind another requirement. But look, is anyone else particular? I feel like we need one more angry person to balance this out, because I can tell you the majority of the community is very, very upset by this, and it seems the majority of the us aren't particularly fussed. Is anyone else seething?
I'm the lone person upset about this.
No,
I mean,
okay.
yeah.
I will say I'm probably going to feel bitter about all the hunters that are going to get boosted to 58 when TBC rolls around, and then go into TBC like some fucking hotshot, and they feel like they're in the same boat as me when I've been a hunter doomer for like the better part of a year now. So yeah,
There's
but other
going to
than
be
that,
a lot of hunter and warlocks boosted.
Yep.
Yeah, dude, and they're gonna come up to me like, "Hello, fellow Beastmaster," and I'm gonna be like, "Get the fuck out of here, kid."
I have 2 hunters, but I don't plan on playing them for TBC, at least for main. Gotta get that gold farm going, really.
Yeah. Like that's as cool as Steady Shot is. Like I've been melee weaving for a long time now, and I just can't see myself spam Steady Shot forever. But my guild master needs me to go hunter because he's like, we don't have enough hunters, buddy boy, and we're gonna need some of those.
At least with TBC, you get a interesting enough rotation. Like you're not casting Shadow Bolt.
Well, it's funny, Booth, you say that. Real quick, Pikseh. I was watching Hunter and Warlock PvE raid rotations last night, and the Hunter one looked far more... They weren't doing the one-button macro, I don't think, but it looked far more boring than I thought. It was just like sort of a lot of straight shot.
Yeah, like, so the way I think about it is a Warlock is spamming Shadow Bolt, and a Hunter is basically doing the same. He just has to do it at the right time. Whereas, like right now, you have a really rhythmic rotation where you have to weave in aim shot and multi shots, and maybe even raptor strikes if you're feeling super sassy. So yeah, I think I'm going to feel like the rotation is getting dumped down, and we'll see if I stick to Hunter after getting Steady Shot.
I started I was Hunter last week, and this week's a Warlock week. I'm feeling it a bit, but anyway, we'll see. Guys, let's move on. The big topic that everyone seemed to be happy with, well, maybe not everyone, that's not fair to say, but a lot of people gave it a very positive reception, was the plan for the phases. Phased content, we all knew it was going to be broken down a certain way, and we seemed to get what was put forward by a lot of people in terms of just making sense. Now, there are still some minor adjustments that people are throwing out there as a suggestion to Blizzard from what we got told, but Phase 1, T4, and Arena Season 1, Phase 2, SSC and Tempest Keep, Phase 3, Hyjal Black Temple, Arena Season 2, Phase 4, Zulaman and Arena Season 3, Phase 5, Sunwell and Arena Season 4. Was everyone breathing out a sigh of relief when they saw this, or maybe not?
Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much what I predicted, except for the fact that I botched the arena seasons completely. Yeah. But I think they put words on why this was important in a way that I couldn't during the podcast, which was this thing that people really have a sense of. They feel it's important to progress their gear and to see their gear improve and to achieve what a certain tier can provide. And you wouldn't get that if tier 4 and tier 5 was out at the same time.
Yeah, you want each level to feel like not just that like you have to earn it, but then also that you get to use it for a little bit.
Exactly. Like the completionist in all of us is really excited for that.
Well, you mentioned one thing though, mate. And that's about the arena seasons, because I think already Blizzard, please don't kill me if I'm getting this wrong, but I think I've seen a loose comment somewhere that Blizzard's already raised the point that they might be willing to move those arena seasons around if they've slightly gotten that wrong, because people are pointing out that the arena seasons really don't line up quite well enough, and that the mix of the way the PvE gear will play into things kind of fucks shit up with how they've announced it. Does anyone know a bit more about that or can comment?
Sure. When they talked about it yesterday, there wasn't going to be an arena season during Phase 1. They were going to wait to do Arena Season 1 until Phase 2, and then Arena Season 2 with the Black Temple patch, which would put Warglaives on par, kind of, with Arena Season 2 gear, even though item level-wise, they're very divergent. That does match up historically. Arena Season 2 and Black Temple in the original TBC did happen that way. But because of the, I guess, accident of history of how difficult it was to kill Lady Vash and how apparently impossible it was to kill Kael'thas, prior to the Black Temple patch, nobody had actually done it. So nobody actually hit that tier 6 gear until, or at least not enough people, until Season 3 had started. And it kind of worked out anyway. They today kind of, like you said, addressed that and said, we may have to revise that and do a Season 1 in Phase 1 and so on and so forth.
And this is where another one of my sort of half predictions did not come to pass, where I sort of tease Blizzard a little bit, saying like they normally get this wrong and then correct it later. But for the most part, these phases are making people very happy. So does anyone else have anything to say about this, or is there not much more to say because it's pretty much right?
From a PvE perspective, I would say everyone's like happy. I mean, they are, but it's more a relief that they actually followed through.
It could have easily been worse, right?
Yeah, like imagine a situation where you got your tier 4, your tier 5, and possibly Hydra, depending how you see it, right off the bat. That would have essentially just killed my enjoyment of TBC straight off the bat.
Fair enough. Guys, let's move on. Did someone else want to have something to say about that, or are we done? All good, we're done.
Yeah, I think everyone covered everything.
Very good, very good. All right. Guys, this, I've probably already said this, but if I've said it before, I take it back and apply it to this one. This was the biggest news for me, what we're about to talk about, the adjustments to encounters. Now, it's great that we got told we're getting pre-nerf versions of the bosses. A lot of people wanted that. They have heard us. The game has been too easy. We have a very hardcore crowd that's just, quite frankly, pretty fucking good at the game and a lot better than, we've been in the past. Also, we're playing stuff that's been worked out where there's a million guides, so even the casual player can become pretty competent at the end of the day as a raider if they just, learn stuff. But to hear the news that Blizzard is ready to push us perhaps a bit harder than they have in the past is very, very nice to hear. I was asking for this on the show. I want the meta to be shifted. I want us to be pushed as players. And the funny thing is, I say this as a player who will bear the brunt of this. I will wear the negative end of the stick because I am not an overly skilled player. This will more than likely lock me out of content. This will keep me away from raids. I will have to get good if I want to fucking get in the team and be able to do this. I'm okay with that because that's what it should fucking do. And I know people have issues with gatekeeping and skill cap keeping, certain content, but I really feel like that's how an MMO should work. The highest gear should go to the best and most dedicated and most skilled players. It's a bit weird in a world where everyone's walking around in the same gear for me. That was the one thing about Classic that really rubs me the wrong way. I mean, along with a bunch of other stuff. But walking by 10 warriors that are all wearing the exact same fucking thing from AQ, I wanted to have, like, literally if you see a warrior, it's a cookie cutter warrior. They all are wearing the same shit. I want to have a different flavor where you see someone in something and you go, holy fuck, that guy can ball. So on top of that, the icing on the cake was, hey, not only are we going to give you the pre-nerf version and make shit hard, we're also going to tweak the encounters to actually maybe bring in some new shit in the way in which it works, which I am ecstatic about because that somewhat throws guides out the window to a certain extent, depending on what they do. Is anyone else as excited about this as me?
Preach, Josh! Motherfucking preach! I am 100% with you.
Yes.
My thing is, I don't know. The casual guild or the more casual guilds, I think a lot of the, or even like the semi-hardcore guilds, I think this buffed content is really going to pressure people into forcing people into the meta more than the community already naturally does. So, like, if you thought, like, you were going to maybe get away with playing like a rogue or a fury warrior or even more than one in-hand shaman, more than one rep hound, raid comps like that, I think this nerf content could really just force people into playing classes they do not want to play in more casual guilds.
Great point, mate.
I also think that... Oh, sorry, go
ahead. You go ahead.
I was just saying I'm also
polite.
a filthy casual and raiding's not my biggest cup of tea. I'm more of a PvP background. However, I think that, as you mentioned, Josh, with it does throw a spanner in the works of the guides that have been done 10 times over, and I think it brings a nice playful curiosity again for a lot of the casual players. I know the hardcore players will certainly grind their way through it and work out the best, but if you remember when you first went into Molten Core for the first time and you didn't have much of YouTube to show you the way, it really was working it out with your pals as to what's actually going on. So although it is a game that's been and done, I think changing it ever so slightly just brings that playful curiosity again with your friends that your 24 other pals that you're playing with.
I agree, and I think that one of the most... Sorry, 1 second, Mike, I want to throw it back to you, but just to interject off of what you said, I think one of the more captivating things in the modern MMO market, when you introduce the concept of marketing tools like Twitch and whatever to broadcast and showcase your game, obviously Race to World First is a huge draw card for Blizzard, watching people get eyeballs on your game as they try to take down hard content. Now, I always thought it was a huge mistake in Classic to not have that element as the part of the game that we've just played. It was all taken down obviously within a couple of hours. But if there was some way to introduce encounters that take days, weeks, potentially, who fucking knows, to take down, and seeing guilds, the top guilds, go through the struggle, that is compelling television, and that will get people buzzing about your game, and we haven't had that in Classic, and it is a marketing tool that I was screaming for about a year ago on the show, and hopefully that's the way it goes with this.
So, yeah, I just want to make one more point, and I completely agree with you, Josh. I am totally for something like that. I think with, the reduction of raid sizes, pre-nerf content, I think in a lot of guilds, other than the top-end guilds, people are going to go into, tier 5 content, and there's going to be a lot of awkward conversations with people that are not performing up to snuff, and, there's just going to be more of these, I don't know how you say, like negative interactions with people that aren't able to perform because we are going to have these pre-nerf raids. These pre-nerf raids are going to be tough. They were tough back then with, with people knew what they were, even when people knew what they were doing. And I still believe the pre-nerf raids are going to be tough when they release it in TBC Classic, if that's really what we get. And it's going to be a real fucking whiplash straight to the face to people that could not like play it at 100%. Like I don't like, there's like the people that like to try to play drunk or high, it is not going to fly.
Well, Mike, what are you going to do? Sorry, one sec, but what are you going to do, Mike, when Rue asks you into the office for a chat and says, Michael, won't you have a seat? We've been through a lot, haven't we? It's just that, you do play rogue, and yeah, this is awkward.
No, I would just play a Warlock. I would just play a Warlock at that point. I probably couldn't be bothered.
I'm teasing. I think
it's really great that they're making the content difficult again. As you mentioned, I think that end game content should be tough, and it's you need to be a good player to utilize the most out of it. From an MMO perspective.
My point was being that a lot of players aren't good, so that's the whole thing.
I think though that this is one of the good things. Yeah, definitely. I think one of the good things. Listen, he plays with me, so he deals with bad players all the time. I think one of the key things that's good about the phases too with this is that like Grolls, Mag, Theridon, and Kara, which are going to be the first phase, right? None of those are like crazy, insanely difficult. I remember Groll, there's some annoying RNG stuff, but like none of those are like guild breakers, I would say, even in their pre-nerf states. But they are definitely like more difficult. So hopefully there will be some easy ends, because back in the day, I remember things not getting really difficult for like a lot of guilds until like somewhat through SSC and obviously TK and Kel'Thas being impossible. But so like I think there's going to be some easing in period, hopefully. And Nax has already started to kind of expose people a little bit. So I think luckily with the phase thing, it's going to be a little bit more of a slower process. But unquestionably, you're going to have some players who are going to realize that like if they want to be part of a guild that's like progressing through every part of the content, of the raid content, that they'll have to up their game a bit.
They would never do anything this extreme, but I would laugh my ass off if you see that first guild walk into Gruul, and once they cross through the instance portal, the first thing they see is Gruul and his brother Drool, the dragon killers. And they're like, what the fuck?
I was going to say, I completely agree, Tim. I think the tier 4 content I think is going to be still fairly easy. I really think to the pre-nerf tier 5 content is really where the rubber is going to meet the road with a roadblock for people. I don't think people will have a problem with tier 4.
Does anybody here play BC private servers? And if so, like are those using pre-nerf raid data?
I played them a bit. Okay. So Netherwing and Endless, I'm not sure if they do the same exact, but Netherwing at least. They not only restored the difficulty to how it was, but they also buffed it in some regards.
So how was it?
Okay.
Vash was the most difficult boss we got, and considering it's 25 Australians playing with 350 MS, I'd say we did pretty well.
So what I'm getting at is, what percentage of the server, whether you're able to say or not, would you find was actually getting through the content in this like pre-nerf and buffed difficulty state?
I would say anyone who has killed Cthulhu is going to clear tier 4, tier 5, and tier 6 with little issue.
So that's everyone?
Yeah. Okay. Even, complete restore difficulty, like as much as I can think of how much they could buff it, legitimately.
Anyone else's tier some sad trombones in their head?
Yeah, I know. So, but just to clarify, what I'm meaning is you're saying like if you were of the skill level or if your guild was able to take down Cthulhu, if you jumped on Endless, then you'd be able to clear the content in their buffed state there.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Definitely.
So then what I'm getting at is it seems like Blizzard would actually have to be rather extreme if they're going to take this seriously and increase the difficulty.
Yeah, they would need to increase... It's hard to tune bosses like to be difficult, but let's say you just add 20% health and damage to the bosses, and somehow that works. That would be compelling.
Fair enough. Hey, Bob, how are you? How's the hangover?
It's a little rough.
Bob from Warcraft Reloaded, obviously, everyone. Mate, it's so good to have you drop in. Please, Bob, if you've got anything to say, jump in at any stage, mate, or if you want to sit there and rest your head and listen in, you're more than welcome.
Cool. Yeah, I'm just doing notes for the show tomorrow, so I thought I'd jump in and hear the conversation.
No worries. And fuck you, mate. Good to see you here. No need to shout out if you don't want to, mate, but I can see you listening in. It's good to have you here. Guys, on these points, still on the difficulty, did anyone have anything more to say on this one? Does anyone feel like they would have to do X, Y, and Z to appease you in terms of difficulty? Is there anything specific you're looking for?
I'll be the naysayer.
Okay.
Since everybody else agreed. The player in me agrees with what everybody has said, that it should be challenging, it should be difficult, you should have to work for progression, and that Classic was too easy. Looking at it from a more holistic approach, I am worried about those casual and semi-casual guilds because, A, I played in one for some period of time during Classic, and I know what they're like. I'm not in one anymore, but I was. And I think that it's pretty clear Blizzard is surprised, maybe even floored, by how successful Classic has been up to this point. And I think a lot of that success rides on the back of the fact that everybody that wanted to raid, at least until Nax, found success in raiding. If that is not the case, come TBC, do we expect those people to just be happy with just running heroics or raiding an entire tier behind the rest of the server? Or do we expect them to just quit? And if they quit, what does that do to our chances of, say, Wrath Classic?
It's such a loaded topic, and I completely appreciate you're so right to bring all of that up. And no one doubts that obviously Blizzard is driven by the almighty dollar, and particularly in the retail version of the game, they subsist pretty much, well, I know Mythic Plus is very hard and this is a weird thing to say, but I was going to say they exist to please the casual is sort of the way that I summarize retail WoW. But I know that raids have never been more difficult than they are in retail, and that the best of the best are extremely skilled and there's some extremely tough content in there. So don't worry, I appreciate all of that. But I really feel that a lot of the decisions being made are to have the casual player see as much of the content as possible. Now, I feel like it's almost like we're doomed to make the same mistakes of the past, because if we again come back and design Classic to have all of the content to be seen by everyone at some point, sort of like it is in retail, a part of me disagrees with that. I just feel like there's so much to do in the game. There's so much. And literally endless hours of PvP if you are PvP focused. If you're not PvP focused, then heroics are a challenge. Go and run them. There are, tier 4 raids that might be a little bit easier that people can go and see. There's, go and level another character. There's go and do this, go and do that. It is, there's a fair bit to do in the game. So I think it's okay to lock out, 2 to 5% of the content and say to people, you're a little bit too casual for this, but if you go work on your skills, then come back, you'll get there, big guy. That's just my personal feeling, in that I hope they don't start to really openly cater to everyone. Just keep a small portion of the content for the elites. And I'm not one of the elites, so it locks me out. That's just how I feel. I don't know.
Well,
I would totally agree. Go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree, but also I think the PvP scene is going to be a lot larger in TBC than it was in Classic, and it was pretty big in Classic.
Yeah, the arena.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at least for me personally, I'm looking forward to PvP and TBC because I feel like it's a system where you can jump in when you feel like you have the time, and then you can opt out when you don't have the time for it, and you won't feel like the time you put in is that the returns are going to diminish just because you can't keep up like 12 hours a day of PvP grinding. So it's going to be much more user-friendly in TBC, in my opinion.
to go back just a step. I would totally agree with what you said, Josh, if we weren't coming off of the back of Classic.
Mhm.
If they had done this from the get-go and made Classic hard the way that you want TBC to be hard, I think that would be fine.
I have to agree too with Zag.
Because I mean, in an ideal situation, then of course you're right. But maybe we should also just appreciate that maybe they have needed Classic to learn how they should do these legacy servers moving forward. And hopefully they're going to do TBC better than they did Classic. But can I just say in terms of this thing about keeping casuals out or gatekeeping because of difficulty? I mean, I remember back when TBC was the new expansion, I was just a little lad, and there was this mystique around these raids that I didn't get to do because I was a fucking scrub. I was probably as bad as Josh is now. But
nobody's that bad.
But there was something awe-inspiring in seeing this Chad of a warrior in full tier 6 gear and with a bulwark of Asenath standing in Shatrath, and I was just standing around there in my dungeon blues because I was a shitter. So I mean, there's something cool about the mystique around raids that are too difficult for the masses.
Yeah, as somebody whose guild was easily a tier behind all the the higher end rating guilds back in BC, and it was definitely a bit more of a casual player. Even I played a lot, but and all our guildies and all my friends were more casual players. It was great. It was fun. One of the brilliant things about BC is that there is a lot to do, even if you're not like rating at the top. Like you said, there's still a lot of heroes to run. I don't know how they're going to do like rep releases, but there's the Netherwing mounts and the Stingray mounts, whose names I forgot. But like there's all sorts of like different stuff that is like, this is when dailies started to really become a thing. Like Blizzard, when they designed BC, was starting to think of the more casual player and the players who only had a few hours a day, and you see that in some of the design. So that's still going to be there. And so I don't think having difficult, and also as we heard Booth mention, like the difficulty here is just them putting it to pre-nerf levels. But it sounds like that's still not going to be like insane difficulty. It's going to be more difficult, but
and also I think it's not a bad thing that some guilds are not at the forefront or at the last bus of the hardest available raid at the time, as long as raids and guilds of different skill levels experience progression in their own right.
But I do think it was as popular as it was because it was easy, though. I mean, I saw it in my guild. I saw it in a lot of guilds, and like now that Nax is not necessarily hard, but it's hard to keep up with consumes and all of that. Like now you see, like it really going down to the hardcores. So I feel like just progressing the raids, like it should start out easy, I feel, to get people in, and then they might keep going if it's easy to start. But if it's so hard at the start, it's really going to turn off a lot of people, I would think.
I think Kara and Girl and Mag are still going to be pretty easy.
Yeah. Anyone who considers himself a raider is going to get Kara down. They're going to get Gruul down. Mag, if it's completely restored to how it was, might be a bit of a issue. But like, you can't consider yourself a raider and then not kill Kara and Gruul. Those things are just completely opposite.
I mean, there's also a trade-off. Like maybe you think it's not the best that the raids feel more difficult, but on the other hand, maybe it feels very liberating that you don't hate yourself and your guildmates if you die while you have world buffs up, because world buffs are not going to be a central part of raiding anymore.
You the hallelujah sound clip.
All right, guys. With that, let's move on to maybe the final big talking point. And you guys, if we've missed anything, let me know after this one. But I mean, in terms of like, things that are worthy of extended conversations. Obviously, Blood Elf Draenei being available to us during a pre-patch is huge news. This is something that I'm going to dive into as well. If there's nothing much going on in game and there's a 6-week period or whatever where I can level a Blood Elf Paladin, sure, fuck it. I'll give it a go. I didn't really particularly care one way or another with this one. I wasn't super invested, but I know a lot of people were. A lot of you might have had all their prayers answered with this news. Who was most excited here?
Well, I already kind of knew what was happening, but I was glad to see it announced because I'm rerolling Shaman. Originally, I'll drum up a scenario where Tier 4 and Tier 5 are on release. My initial plan was to play a Priest main, which I have at 60 ready to go, do Tier 4 and 5, then go and reroll Shaman, and then come back as the Shaman I intended to play. And that would have been atrocious, and I'm sure Blizzard thought that something like that could happen. So allowing Draenei and Blood Elves to reroll.
I think one of the funniest reactions... Oh, sorry, Booth.
That's all good. I was just going to say, like allowing Draenei and Blood Elves to reroll before it starts fixes so many issues.
Yeah, I think one of the funniest reactions I saw I'm not really planning to play a Paladin, but like one of our guildies, Agrado, I think he might have been on the show a couple times, but he is like very much like he's been planning it since day one of Classic. He's got like entire bank alts just dedicated to having gear ready. He's leveled up summoners in like specific spots to make the leveling faster. And I thought he was going to be really excited about this, but he was like, oh, I spent so much time like figuring out like how to get to 60 as soon as possible when they release BC Classic, and now I'll just have the pre-patch. So he was almost sad about it, but no, I think he's excited. I mean, it seems like it's very cool they're doing it. I think it's smart. I think it'll be a nice, fun way of like the leveling scene is going to be really vibrant for a few weeks as everybody's running dungeons with 5 paladins.
It's is anyone against this at all?
Yes, get rid of Blood Elves.
Look,
I'm against it. Get rid of Blood Elves. They were the worst thing to ever happen to the Horde. And they're literally just a pretty race. Fucking get rid of them.
And look, if we draw from Cataclysm, you can just make Turin's paladins. And it's solved.
Yes. Thank you.
Really,
Someone
though,
gets it.
I feel like the issue of red paladins is kind of blown out of proportion because you're going to have 1 per 25-man raid, right?
Oh, there's going to be way too many people. There's going to be so many red paladins, and and raids are going to be like, yeah, we'll take you, and then there will be 100 other ones just standing out in the open, like,
Yeah, but they're still like. I'm not sure if I completely agree, actually, especially now that we know that seal twisting is going to be a thing, and if the general skill level of players is that much higher, maybe
the way I understand it on private servers is that in a best case scenario, Ret Paladins could do around 2,200 DPS, and then Rogues do around 2,700 DPS on the same encounter with the same amount of heroisms.
Problem is now you've got why can't I think the fucking spanner in the works? What's the term I'm looking for?
Warglaves?
No, like I said, seal twisting.
Oh yeah, no, seal. Well, that's with seal twisting.
Oh, with seal twisting. Sorry, I'm with you.
Yeah,
okay.
private servers have. Yeah, they have seal twisting. Yeah.
So that's what we'll have with seal twisting, more or less.
Sorry, what is seal twisting?
It's basically where you can recast a seal as you're swinging to get the on-hit effect of both seals.
You get a double up.
So Blood Elves could do Seal of Blood plus Seal of Command, I assume it was, and that was really strong. Whereas for Alliance, it was Seal of Vengeance plus Seal of Command, which was very weak.
And when they're talking about like double Seal of Commands or some shit like that?
Yeah, you can apparently downrank your Seal of Command and do 2 ranks, but that's still kind of weak. But now with Seal of Blood, everything changes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The only really sort of intriguing part of this news for me is what effect it's going to have on, Outland as we go through the Dark Portal, because we all said, like, fuck. The one reason I said I didn't think this was going to happen is because it allows Blizzard an organic reason to keep players away from the lag fest that would be everyone pouring through the Dark Portal. Now that they're doing it in the pre-patch and everyone can just level up their Blood Elves and Draenei, that's obviously, not necessarily more people sitting at the Dark Portal, but, because whether or not they would have been playing on their main instead of leveling a Paladin, who knows? Fucking anyway, it's going to put a lot of pressure on the opening of BC. But I presume they've done it because they've no mention of layering or anything whatsoever during the BlizzCon presentations. But I mean, I still presume we're getting some pretty heavy layering coming our way if this many players are going to be standing there at launch.
Yeah, I think that either way, like either they're going to use layers and then, I mean, it doesn't matter how many people go through the portal, they're just going to add more layers, or they're not going to use layers and then they're going to add a queue, and then it doesn't matter how many people have level 60 Blood Elves because, I mean, get behind the queue, buddy.
I mean, layers are kind of necessary for the size of the servers, just for the economy.
Yeah, and if you go beyond the initial leveling and whatever, if you come down to the elemental plateau issue, which is going to be insane, you effectively need one layer per 1,000 people to make a server work. Because back in the day, a healthy server had like 1,000 to 2,000 people, and now we've got mega servers which have almost 8,000 people on them. It's kind of crazy.
Guys, real quick, I've actually got to go relatively soon, so we might zip through the end of this. But the one last point that I wanted to raise, I don't think there's a necessarily extensive chat that it warrants. I think it was probably something that was pretty widely, cheered, was the PvP team extension, doubling the size of your team through all the brackets. Everyone happy with this? Think it was the right thing to do?
Yeah.
I didn't know it hadn't all like that. So I was mostly surprised that it hadn't always been like that. So yeah, but it makes perfect sense in my opinion.
The only thing I'm still curious about on that point is whether, since we're starting on 2.4.3, we will start with personal arena rating.
Yeah, they're yet to address that. I don't think they've said anything just yet. I think, but they made a mention. Guys, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought they had. Someone made a half mention that, like, the team thing, maybe we want to look at that.
Yeah, I think they said they're still considering how they're going to handle that.
Guys, was there any, please tell me if I've missed something. I might have missed something huge. Anything else that came out of the information we got from BlizzCon that we haven't discussed? Or that warrant, I mean, I know there's stuff we haven't discussed, but that warrants hefty discussion.
I don't know if this warrants hefty discussion. I was happy to see that they're going to allow cloning, so you can have your character still on an old classic server and also progress to TBC.
Well, yeah, they said you can pay for that.
Yeah, I'm less happy that it's a paid service. And between that and the boosting, it feels like they're more and more, that just makes sense from a business standpoint. It's probably how they sell this stuff to like the Activision execs, but they're just going more and more down like paid things and paid services.
But if it's a paid service, then you effectively help guarantee that they'll actually play that character. Because if it was free, I would just do it and probably not play.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I also like the fact that the second the pre-patch goes live, it's basically you get a copy made on both BC version of your server and the classic version of your server, and that copy will stay there forever. And then when you activate it, it will just be from that date that they copied it. But I like that because it means like you can just go play and do BC progression, and then if like a year later you're like, oh man, I wonder what the vanilla scene looks like right now, you can go back and do that, and it'll still be there.
Yeah, like we've mentioned. Like we've mentioned on the show before, I've said this a couple of times, like I had no doubt that TBC Classic was going to be the moment where they tip us upside down like a garbage bin and empty us out in terms of just shaking out our pockets. We didn't get the cosmetics that I thought might come our way. I thought that would be an easy one to do, like, haircuts or whatever. I know that some of that stuff comes in Wrath. I thought they might have brought it forward a little bit more to get some extra coin out of us, but we didn't get that. But little things or big things like this coming in with the extra paid services, I'm not shocked in the slightest. This is, like you say, it's being driven by the bottom line.
One thing I was
go,
disappointed not to see was the ability to change race with your existing characters. Because there's a lot of, and I'll use hunters as an example, there's hunters out there that want to go to Draenei so they can get the hit aura for their groups.
Yeah, I mean, even if it was something as simple as race change, but not to Blood Elf and Paladin, I'm a little bit surprised that wasn't there too.
Yeah.
Blood Elf and Draenei.
Oh, sorry, Blood Elf.
Right?
I'm a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? Yeah.
But the point is, like, if you've already got the 60, all you're changing is your racials for costs. It's not like you're keeping people out of content, really.
Good point though, Booth. Guys, is there anything that we didn't hear that you were hoping to hear during BlizzCon?
Release date.
Oh yeah, of course, that's a big one.
Amen.
No, yeah, right. Yeah, just a release date. I wanted to hear a release date at this point.
Yeah, we all.
They did say beta very soon today.
Yeah, they did. I think they talked a lot about, I mean, they even coined it hashtag some changes. So they're definitely listening to the community. So in that regard, I'm a bit surprised that they didn't touch on Jewel Spec at all.
Yeah, or whether they're not touching it because they feel it's just too tied in with Wrath and it's not worth mentioning. Yeah. Who knows? Or if they eventually address it and just go, yeah, look, we're thinking about it. I don't know.
But I definitely feel like it's been talked about so much that it did warrant a mention, or just to let us know what they feel about it.
Oh yeah, I'm with you. Even if it's something as harsh as just a quick shoot down, just like, yep, we heard you, we're not doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, guys. Well, look, I might wind it up there. I've got to record with Kevin Jordan in a couple of hours, so I won't go too nuts with this one. But I think that was a relatively succinct breakdown of what we heard, and it was like I said, I am pretty happy. I'm very happy with what we heard. I think we're in a good spot. I don't think it was necessarily all fantastic. People feel a bit weird about paid boosts and things like that. But on the whole, I think Blizzard did a good job. I'm very critical of them at many junctures through the show. I think this was a good start for TBC. It's very, very nice to hear that they have somewhat embraced the notion of hashtag some changes and how far they are willing to go with those changes that they're choosing to make. So it's all well and good. Guys, thanks so much for being here. We'll do our goodbyes real quick. Bawlsosteel, mate, thanks so much.
Hey, it was a pleasure being here, Josh. I hope to be on the podcast more in the future.
Absolutely, mate. Bob, thanks for dropping in, man.
Wait, was this recorded?
Oh,
nice. Cool. Happy to be on. Thank you for having me.
I'm still drunk. Fair enough. No, everyone, go and listen to Warcraft Reloaded. It's another great classic podcast that you can get out there that Bob hosts with his wife Mel as well. And Booth, mate, thanks so much for being here.
Cheers for having me.
Pikseh, thanks, dude. We'll have to get you on more often.
Dude, I'd love to. Thank you very much. It was nice to join the spontaneous call.
Always. Surrealz, thanks for dropping in, man. First timer.
Oh, first time. Loved every moment. Hope to be here again soon. Thank you.
Thanks, dude. Tim, love you.
Yeah, great, man. Love being on as per usual. We'll talk more about your lack of getting good Mexican food last time you were here.
I know. My questionable Mexican food choices, absolutely.
Taco Bell, that's all I need.
ZGaiden, thanks for dropping in, man.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you guys, and I'll have to redeem myself. A lot of shots at my skill level from this one, but that's all right. I'll get good.
Don't worry, Josh.
We're just all very honest people, okay?
No, it's
I
fair.
took shots at everyone, so
it's
I
fair.
took shots
It's
at the
fair.
general player base.
To be fair, though, usually it feels like half the shots about your skill level come from yourself.
Oh no, absolutely.
So,
that's why it's absolutely. I'm joking. It's fair game. I fucking deserve it, but I do plan on getting better through TBC. But yeah, all right, guys. Let me end the recording here. Well, Kevin, just before I let you go, I mean, just real quick, what do you do now? I'm picturing like a Ace Ventura style shot of you crying naked in the shower after BlizzCon.
Oh,
Get a look at this
I'm
over here.
trying to figure it out. Like, what do I do? Like, the community's going to hate me because I'm going to be bad-mouthing all these changes they love. But I I got to be me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to be yourself. You'd voice your opinion.
Right. So it'll be interesting, you know, over time, like if I change any minds and again, that's not my goal. Like, I don't think it's not wrong to want the things you want. That's your role as players, and you're living up to your role, you know, perfectly, you know, chase after your dreams, make things how you want it, change your world. Right. To me, it's just weird that the classic community, which has carried this flag of bringing back our beloved vanilla experience, is now in the same camp of like homogenize more things.
Yeah,
right?
I hear you.
Make things easier. Bring in dual spec so we don't have to spend time or money.
Yeah, I'm anti dual spec. How do you feel? It's funny because I'm anti dual spec, and I wouldn't say. How do I say this correctly? When it comes to the level 58 boost, I've been on the show saying I am against it in spirit, but I don't get outwardly offended by it, if that makes sense. But I have a funny feeling that would have sort of made your blood boil a little bit.
Yeah, I'm outwardly offended.
That's okay.
I've just never believed in the person that got left behind and wants to pull out their wallet to catch up. You know what I mean? I've never believed in the pressure on either side. Like the pressure is on one side is, well, I don't have the time. I want to play this thing, but I don't have the time to put in to play this thing. And it's like, well, then you don't get the thing, right? Like, and that's okay. You know, like these are choices, but if you want to be, you know, crushing Nax right now and be crushing Sunwell the second it comes out, then you know what? Get divorced, quit your job, put your kids up for adoption, and start gaming. Right?
No,
it's easy.
To a certain extent, you're right. You're exactly right.
But this idea that so I don't understand like why people think it's okay that people that don't do any of those things should get all the things that people that, you know, have worked their asses off to accomplish all that stuff, and having, you know, cash money being the key difference there is atrocious to me.
Yeah.
But the other pressure I also don't agree with is like, well, I want to play with my friends and I'm ahead of them. And it's like, well, go play with your friends. Yeah. You know, like the other side of this argument is re-roll new characters to play with your friends. Yeah, like you'll have to give up a little bit of your progression, but it's like, is he your friend you want to play with or isn't he? You know, like, make a decision there. And both answers are okay, right? It's okay to tell your friend, you know, sorry, you love your kids. I get it. You know, get lost. I'm going to keep progressing with my power guild. That's fine. Yeah. But it's also cool to say, you know, I'm going to stop progressing a little bit, and then we're going to get up there together and do it as friends. And it's going to be super fun and super meaningful. So,
I mentioned really earlier on a call that's going to air on the show later on that I recorded this morning, saying that whilst I know that you're the opposite feeling towards this, but whilst I'm mostly on board with what I heard through BlizzCon and I'm feeling positive about things, I do sense that slight bending to the will of the casual, which I point to as the downfall of the game. The more that they were happy to bend over backwards for the casual player and have everyone have fun and everyone play together and everyone's great, that was what made me fall away from the game. And the most ironic thing about that, Kevin, is I'm the fucking casual that stands to gain the most from that ethos, right? But I'm the one screaming, no, lock me out.
And what's really important there is you're not the casual. Right. The casual isn't even aware. He didn't even watch BlizzCon. He doesn't even know what's happening. The true casual is just like he logs into WoW once in a while. Yeah. He doesn't visit message boards and all that. He's not on Twitch. He doesn't even know Twitch is a thing. Right. And so the real people pushing this agenda are a lot of like Twitch streamers. Right. They're people that are on Reddit every day. They're people making YouTube videos constantly. These are not casuals at all. You know, like they're the furthest thing from casual. So, and then that creates a movement amongst all the people that consume all that content, right?
Well, and that's been the thing that gives me the shits.
People that consume content at a rapid pace aren't casual either. But
No.
so there's this huge movement.
Well, I mean,
But it's
the thing that gives
casual.
me the shits the most, I think, about like the dual spec argument is, like you say, it's really pushed by people that, in my mind, play the game more than fucking anybody else. And I'm like, you have the time and all the gold to have dual spec, the cost of of a respec not be an issue. Like, it's a problem for me who's broke in game, and I don't care. I don't want it in the game. I don't know. It's just, it's a funny
The
thing.
gold capped people arguing for dual spec is a really funny one.
Yeah.
It's like that cost is completely meaningless to your bottom line. But
Yeah.
the other one, also is like the same people that are really happy about pre-nerfed bosses.
You think they're in for a rude surprise?
Oh, it's not going to be hard. There's no way this boss is pre-nerfed or not. It's going to be a challenge, right? So that's one big thing. Like, it's going to slow those, really, really powerful guilds down by a microsecond, right? It's going to take a microsecond off their time. But the other thing is, so you want challenge? Okay, well, why don't you, I don't know, play Alliance without Seal of Blood? Yeah, there's challenge.
Yeah,
right. Like, why don't you play an Alliance guild without any shaman? There's a challenge, right? Why don't you go kill an Ixian naked? There's a challenge, right? So there's plenty of challenge all around us, but the things that they don't really want challenge, like in their mind, they've fabricated this scenario where it's going to be a little bit harder. It's going to get their juices flowing a little bit more, but they're still at the end of the day going to crush it, put it on farm status, and then stand in a slightly smaller group that considers themselves elite, right? But the scenarios that they don't envision is the content is too hard and it actually ends up breaking their guild, right? Because they can't get through it, right? Which is a very common thing. And there's a lot of guilds out there that broke up on AQ40, right? There's guilds that can't get through Nax, right? So, but they don't envision that part. They don't want the game to be that hard, right? And so it puts players in this really weird, place where they're like, oh, I want more challenge. But at the end of the day, they're not, I just don't believe them. I don't really believe that they want to actually dig deep and spend 3 months trying to get through Sunwell. Yeah. Like Nax. How long did Nax take to get down the first time? It was months, right? And it's like, is that the challenge players want?
It's a funny thing.
Because I bet a lot of them don't.
It's a funny thing, mate, because I've trumpeted on a lot about, J. Allen Brack giving the infamous statement of "you think you do, but you don't" at BlizzCon many, many years ago. I think I stated this many times on the show. It was categorically wrong throughout the lifespan of Classic that, that wasn't the case. But, I think things are slightly taking a change with TBC where, weirdly enough, that statement is prophetically coming slightly true. With when you look at some of the requests that are being made by the player base through TBC, where, the classic version of the game we got was a little bit broken and different to the point that people bitched about the issues that Blizzard gave us. And so, think you do what you don't, we didn't want that version of the game, but whatever. But now they, things like dual spec, things like different challenges or whatever. Yeah, I think J. Allen Brack, I joked about this the other day, going, he's slightly, getting, I made the joke that he touches himself every time someone says this, but, I really think there's a slight little smirk that will appear on the face going, here we go, watch this Classic player base turn.
Yeah, my take on that whole thing was I'm really mad that he said that, because that's a design. That's a phrase as a designer I want to use legitimately all the time. Like, you think you want me to remove days, but you really don't. Right? And so I'm angry. I'm angry that he got to, take credit for that phrase. But yeah, it is frequently true. But yeah, in that particular case where it was used, it was absolutely not true.
Yeah.
But it is frequently true, and the difference between game designers and game players.
Mate, just real quick off the cuff before I let you go, you mentioned Chris. Can I push you in a weird position and ask for a favor? Are you able to get a line to Chris somehow? I just want to let him know that I'd love to chat to him on the show sometime.
Yeah, I'll let him know.
Thanks so much, mate. The only reason being is that now that the game has officially been announced, I've held back on approaching more and more devs, former devs or current devs. But now that it's official, I'm kind of going to go a bit harder on trying to get more current and former staff on the show. And the reason I say that is also I've just heard news today that maybe, fingers crossed, it might happen. I don't know. I don't like to get my hopes up too high. But do you know of or know Holly at all, who's now looking to be very much so in a senior management position on the Classic team? Because I got told that she might come on the show.
Nice.
Yeah, so okay, fair enough. So if she does indeed come on the show and I get some time with her, I'll have a bunch of stuff to ask her. I'll have to press her on some of the stuff that you've raised, mate, and see what she says about like the Paladin things and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so and I think I heard right that she started as a game designer on the EverQuest team.
I know her history with the EverQuest, yeah.
Yeah, so her background is actually in design. So, yeah, it would definitely be interesting to hit her with some of those questions.
For sure. I really hope that comes to fruition. But we shall see. Anyway, Kevin, I will let you go. Thank you so much for spending all this time with us. I'll touch base with you soon. Hopefully do this again in about a fortnight, mate. You're an absolute legend. The Classic community freaking loves you. Thank you so much. And,
all the love's on the side of the table.
That's it. Actually, mate, I should just double check. Everything we just talked about over the last 15 minutes, are you cool if I include that in the pod at some stage?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, mate. All right, I'll talk to you later, Kevin.
All right, see you later, man.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, see you, Kevin. Thank you.
Hey, Josh, can we find Kevin on Twitch anywhere?
Oh, yes, of course I will. Kevin, we've got to throw you a plug. What's happening at your Twitch channel, mate?
Just business as usual. I would still variety stream a lot of different games. I know World of Warcraft is the only game that's ever been made, but every once in a while there's another game out there that is worth showcasing. So I try to play a lot of other games, but I'm doing hardcore duos with Baba Ganoush, Sean Carnes, and that's been good fun. And yeah, you can find me at twitch.tv/Kevin Jordan. So
very good. Yes, I can confirm there are other video games out there as I look at my wife to the right of me into her 20th hour of Factorio. So
that'll swallow the hours for sure.
All right, mate. We'll talk to you later.
All right, man. See you later.
See ya. Thanks so much for that, guys. All you guys here still in the call. Ayle, Marrow, Sarbara, was that everything you hoped it would be and more?
Yeah, super stoked on it. Thank you for the opportunity. Super nice.
Mate.
I just love listening to Kevin talk about game design.
Oh,
and
he's
I
a
just
delight.
Wish that he was still designing games because, he thinks about it way more than I ever knew people could.
Yeah, the more I hear him, the more sort of happy and sad I get at the same time. Like you say, that he's not there anymore, and just when you can see when you get him on a roll, when you either strike a nerve or strike something that he was really proud of or passionate about, he starts to speak a little quicker, he gets into it, and he just dives really, really deep, and you can see all the gears turning in the head, and I fucking love it. So I'm just throwing in a second call here for everyone because I recorded the one you just heard this morning. We've just spoken with Kevin Jordan for a session, and I was talking with some of the Warriors after Kevin jumped off the line, and I'm happy to be joined now by Ayle, Marrow, and Sarbara. And I just wanted to get a few more Blizzconline impressions, just because I feel like the more people we hear from, the more you can get a little bit of a dip sample of how the community's feeling about everything. I don't want people to feel boxed in by, the half a dozen voices that we had on the last call. Maybe we'll get the same thing said again. I don't know. Maybe we'll get varying opinions, but let me just throw it out there to you guys. And well, Ayle, I might actually just start with you and see where the conversation takes us. Just a quick, short, sharp one. But, what were your feelings just overall? What stood out to you?
What stood out to me was just the amount of things that they are going to change as compared to the classic release, much to the joy of the community. Because I remember, I was on a lot of your early shows and the discussion was changes or no changes. And no changes was like the mantra for everybody, mainly so like sneaky stuff didn't sneak in that was really antithetical to classic. But now it really feels like everything could be on the table. And a little bit of it that is scary, kind of like what you brought up.
Yeah.
Overall, I feel pretty good because I'm liking that there's going to be, maybe a little bit more challenging bosses, especially earlier on. I think the way they're listening to do the arena seasons is good. But yeah, potentially, I don't know, we're kind of entering that slippery slope of Frankenpatch, and while things may seem good at first, we've seen that once you wake up in the morning and roll over, you're like,
Yeah, very good analogy, because, I mean, I'll play, people will hear Kevin's take on this as well, because we just got off the line with Kevin, like I mentioned, and he gave a really good sort of 10-minute moment there where he started to talk about how he felt about BlizzCon, because overall he was a kind of down on everything that we heard, and his background is obviously as a game designer. And from a game designer's perspective, he sort of didn't agree with a lot of the things that we heard, even though the community on the whole really is giving the impression that there was an overwhelmingly positive response to the majority of the news that we got, give or take one or two things. Now, it's funny because I'm with you, Ayle. When I heard Kevin sort of lament what's coming to pass with the Classic franchise, I do wonder if we are, even though, look, I'm on board, hashtag some changes, it's all well and good, but I do wonder if we are entering sort of a scary moment in the franchise. I'm not afraid of it per se, but I'm just saying things are going to get pretty wild and different from here on, so everyone better strap in. Do you guys, like Marrow, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with, I think, the majority of the community in that I think that basically everything that's been announced was positive. I could not be happier with, the announcement of harder content. And especially I don't know if you've had the chance to look at this, but there was some talk of nerfing drums.
We saw.
Yeah, which is something that I'm super on board with. Maybe not, not saying it should completely nerf it to the ground, but it does show that they have some willingness to kind of like change some of these things that are a little bit that are a little harmful to the game. I would put chain listing in that same boat. It just creates some really degenerate gameplay. And so I think those would become a really big problem in classic TBC if not addressed. And the fact that they're willing to look at, things like this gives me hope for the future to just make something better.
Sarbara, mate, what about you? How did you feel overall from what you heard over the last 2 days?
I'm probably 50-50 I think I like that they're doing changes. I think there's no more no changes because we know that doesn't work. I think we need to start asking for smart changes. And I think sort of my biggest takeaway from it is they are looking at what TBC was and what lessons we've learned from Classic in terms of what it's going to be.
Right.
I know one of the big changes that has been talked about and Kevin wasn't a fan of, but I think as an Alliance player is almost necessary is the Paladins getting both seals. And I can understand why Kevin doesn't like that. But I think that when you're dealing with a player base that is so interested in min-maxing and everything on that standpoint, you can't ignore that huge faction imbalances could literally break the game. No matter what else you do, if every single player feels like they have to roll Horde for X, Y, or Z reason, then the game's not going to work.
Yeah. And playing on one-sided servers is not fun. I mean, Ayle plays on Scarum, I play on Heartseeker. I think we both agree that probably not the best environment. I would not, if given the opportunity, I wouldn't have a server where my faction consists of 90% of the population.
It's something, I mean, Sarbara, I was having a laugh when you were talking, only because when you say maybe hashtag smart changes is the way to go, I was like, whoa, baby steps. Let's start with changes and then we'll maybe graduate to smart changes. You got to take these things one step at a time. But, Ayle, do you feel that these changes en masse are, I just think it's more indicative of a positive line of thinking on Blizzard's behalf. Even if Kevin, and I appreciate where Kevin's coming from, that the changes they may have specifically picked might not be ideal for him, I think it's still good to have the notion that they're willing to be flexible.
Yeah, I do agree. Like I said, I'm just kind of worried that the public, how do I put this? You know what I mean? Like the groupthink will be too strong for things that are just going to kind of ruin this. You know, like people are so. I think that at least the sentiment right now is that people want dual spec. They want to be able to have
bring that up
too, right?
Yeah.
And I think things like that, like there's reasons why they built that into the game that we don't even realize. Like they're specific gold sinks. I'm sure that when they had planned out how much quests give and drops and everything, that they had factored in a certain amount of people respecing from time to time or doing things, right? So like I'm concerned how far it will go just based on the influence of people, or it's good to see that they are making, smart changes. They do have their pulse on the community, but I'm worried when that goes too far, especially with the the influencer crowd and things.
The dual spec thing is a great example, Ayle, because I haven't really talked about it much on the show. And you guys know that I'm very, very coy. I'm very shy when it comes to weighing in heavily on certain things because I just don't feel like I have the requisite knowledge or, nerd, brownie points to really be able to come in forceful on something. But like, I am personally against dual spec being brought into TBC. But like Ayle says, this wave of groupthink, like the majority of people really do now seem to be calling out for it. So it's interesting that Blizzard didn't acknowledge it at all over the last 2 days. Whether that is an indication that means it's not even on the fucking drawing plans or the drawing board for them is maybe something. But people always raise the point of convenience. Oh, it's one of two things. Well, we're getting it in the next expansion anyway. Plus, well, it's just so convenient. And I'm like, I agree with that. But I just feel like it has to, I feel like it's not there for a reason. And you talked about gold sinks and things like that. I would use the shit out of dual spec if it came in TBC, but I'm also not offended if it's not there, and I'll do the work that's required to pay up to switch over if I need to. And I'm a casual that struggles more for the money, but you do what it takes. Anyone else on the dual spec thing?
I'm kind of on the same boat. I think that it goes, you brought up a really good point, right, which is people saying, okay, it comes into the next expansion anyways, why wouldn't you just, do it now? But then again, what are the other systems that come in expansions later down the line, and why wouldn't you bring in those systems, right? So, and systems which were, kind of clearly harmful for the game as well. And so I think, personally, just like you, if it was introduced, I would use the shit out of it. But I think it opens the door for more nefarious quality of life improvements to come down the line. And I don't think that's a door that we want to open. I don't know.
I'm not as on board with the slippery slope argument like you're sort of referring to, but it doesn't worry me as much. But I just, look, if we get it, I will be cheering for people. I'll be happy for people. And it's not like I won't be reaping a benefit. I just personally, I'm happy to wait another 2 years for the next expansion to include it. I just feel like it's part of the flavor of TBC that it wasn't there, which I know is a weird thing to say because people say these anti-quality of life things, why did you like being held back in Classic by certain things, blah, 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 just because that's the way it was. And I know that's a relatively flawed line of reasoning. I just, I'm me is all I can really say. But the other stuff that we heard at BlizzCon, guys, the big ones, the 58 boosts, the extra dungeon difficulty, you guys have kind of already touched on that one. Any other really, really strong feelings about some of the stuff that you were told about?
I wanted to jump in on the dual spec. I 100% think that it should not be there because I think this is what I meant by smart changes. is I only want them to change things that have to be updated based on, how the player base plays now. The Paladin switch is something that nobody was looking at picking their race and which faction at the time of TBC based on what Paladin could do. But with, over a decade of knowledge, that changes the way the player base plays. Dual spec, who cares? Make a little extra gold if you want to change your character around because that's the way the game was. That's not something that is changing based on what players now know about the game. That's people literally just asking for a convenience. And when you start giving conveniences, then you end up with retail.
Fair enough.
Oh,
Ayle?
yeah, exactly. Like, it's, I don't know. It moves the needle too much. There's too many ripples that happen when you start doing things like this. And even now, like, there's going to be things that come out of what they changed that we don't even realize now that are going to be, change the way that everybody plays and are going to cause the meta to be different and things like that. And personally, I'm okay with that. And hopefully it's for the better.
Actually, Ayle, I meant to ask. I don't think it was you guys. You guys know I'm losing my mind these days, but I think it was in the call that I recorded this morning. You guys wouldn't have heard that one yet, obviously, but someone made the point to me. I think it might have been Mike, that the changes that we've seen in regards to, increased difficulty in dungeons being, having the encounters tinkered with a little bit and pre-nerf bosses, along with things like the Paladin Seal changes, they seemed to think that we will now perhaps shift more towards the meta more than ever before, whatever that meta might turn out to be. But the min-max crowd might rule with an even bigger iron fist in TBC if the content truly is that challenging now. Now, I know Kevin and both Ayle, you guys have said, look, I can't imagine them coming up with a difficulty that would be a blip on the radar to big guilds. But if it were hypothetically quite challenging, I think there is a really good point there that this min-max community that is the WoW Classic community will now really become hyper intolerant of the specs or classes that they don't deem particularly desirable in a particular situation, like the rogues and the warriors. Who knows? Maybe they really will struggle even more than they would have already, if you know what I mean.
I do think that that's a possibility, but I think that's predicated on truly how hard the content is. Right, we don't really know we don't know enough. The delta between the true difficulty and this like harder unnerved content, right? Yeah. So if this true delta is small, it might not make enough of an impact to where like stacking warlocks and hunters solely is necessary, right? However, if this delta is really large, and you start seeing guilds, because we are going to be on the same servers, we're going to be progressing forward, and people know other people on the server and they know the guilds, right? I think that if people start realizing that these guilds were previously crushing the content in Classic are suddenly struggling TBC, then that might trickle down.
Yeah. It's definitely too early to say, and it sort of is somewhat of a hyperbolic statement on my behalf, because we just don't know enough at this point to know if the needle is going to shift much on the meta, because we don't know how difficult Blizzard's current definition of difficult is. So time will tell in that regard. Guys, anything else? I feel like we've talked about a few things here. Anything else that stood out to you? People aren't really talking about, I think everyone sort of agreed that like the arena changes were a good thing. Oh, actually, Ayle, the one thing I thought you might be able to weigh in on was the, people are already kind of buzzing about, a change to the proposed phases where they go, look, it's really good. That the majority of people are like, great job, Blizzard. You listened to us and you broke up tier 4 and tier 5. That's fantastic. Problem is, the way that the arena seasons line up with the PvE content, it's not really falling in line right now. If you just made a slight adjustment, and I think they said, no, God, I hope I'm getting this right, pushing season 1 into phase 1, something like that, because I think they had phase 1. I don't know, I'm getting something wrong, but yeah, okay, maybe I'm getting it right. But talk to me about the adjustment that you think needs to happen and why it needs to happen, because a lot of people are saying the PvE gear is going to fuck shit up.
Well, they actually made that change already, didn't they, in the Q&A today?
Well, I heard an allusion to the fact that they were going to look at it. I think...
Yeah, they'd already mentioned that they're going to probably change the season. Can someone else comment exactly on that?
I do remember them saying
correct.
they were going to look into it. Yeah. But tell me why, if they do go ahead and change that would be great. But tell me why it's significant.
Well, yeah, because previously how it was set up, if the raiding community is as strong as it is in Classic, the raiding gear will be far superior to the PvE gear, to the PvP gear. And it still even is a little bit strange because looking at how the timelines are, I'll be able to have a Storm Herald in Season 1. Because when Tier 5 does come out, Season 1 will still potentially, be going. Or at least that's how it was, right? Their new change, how is it going to be? It was Tier 5 with Season 2?
Tier 5 in Season 2, yeah. So you only have Stun Herald with Season 2, but you're going to be able to have Deep Thunder in Season 1.
Right. Okay, so that's already a lot better. Based on how it was yesterday, people were going to have like the rank 3 PvP weapons potentially in Season 1. And some people, like, looking at the old timeline, that was actually possible before, but people were much less good at raiding. Gear wasn't being like pushed into the community from raiding as much in TBC as it was in Classic. Like in Classic, the raiding, the overall completion is just so much higher. So that would have been a major problem. So them pushing that back already is a really good sign. I don't know if you did any PvP back then, but having that weapon, you absolutely shred people. Like it's insane. It's basically equivalent to, a Black Temple weapon, right?
Yeah.
I think I could honestly say everyone's sort of not going to be surprised, but semi-surprised at the same time. I think I did one arena match back in the day. Like I didn't fucking touch it. But I mean, obviously the opposite is my feeling this time around, and I'm very, very excited to jump into the arena. It's actually, it's a relatively common thing I'm seeing. A lot of people that didn't do any PvP back in the day now in Classic have come to embrace it. So it's been a bit of fun in that regard. So yeah, we'll see, how everything goes. But guys, anything, I won't keep you too long, but, just any final thoughts, anything you've been dying to get off your chest, anything you want to rage about, anything you want to cheer about from all of the announcements that we got, whether it's something about news. I mean, obviously the release date is the big one, but the news that we didn't get, what's your most pressing thing to hear next?
I just really want to fly the, fuck chain lusting flag, like really hard. That's basically where you have a group, DPS group, and you get all the 5 shamans in your raid, and you just keep putting them into the group and using Bloodlust, and then when it's done, you swap them out for another shaman, and you keep doing it. And that will just create a completely just degenerate gameplay, where, if people are caring about parses and that kind of stuff, you can wave goodbye to ever being able to parse if you're not doing that.
It's funny that they've already expressed a desire or, standing in solidarity with the community on the drums issue, saying like, look, we're more than happy to look into drums and we'll probably do something about it. I mean, I just don't see much of a difference. If they're willing to do that, wouldn't they be willing to do the same thing for Bloodlust?
I hope so. I really, really hope so. I think it's just more, as long as the community, creates enough noise and, complains enough about it to have some eyes on it, I think that's where we want to get at, basically.
Obviously a bit of a different issue because drums involves, taking one of our profession slots, and people wanted a bit more choice than that. And if you play shaman, that's more often than not a choice of your own. And so people haven't really been calling out for any kind of changes to Bloodlust on the whole, from what I've been seeing in subreddits and forums and whatnot. But it will still be interesting to see if the point gets raised at some point. Ayle, anything else from you?
Yeah, I really want to see them address the actual server communities and how they're going to deal with that, because as, we have 2 people here who are basically on PvE servers, through, I mean, for me, I would say no fault of my own, but, our guild was very bloodthirsty. How are they going to manage that? Like, in TBC, it becomes a lot less of an issue. The world is kind of much less important, even though there is a bunch of added, PvP events. But a lot of the servers right now, to be fair, are really fucked. And are they going to do anything to fix that? Because that's a huge part of Classic. It's a huge part of, Classic TBC, or at least it should be. And I know, like, the server I'm on, my experience was, it sucked. Like, I never got to encounter anybody in the world. And it really, it really hurt. And I would like something to be done. I don't want them to do, like, their retail solution where there's, like, join servers where, like, you basically are on like a group or something. I don't know. It's just like, this is Warcraft. There's supposed to be another faction there. And the way the logistics were handled, it just created dead servers and dead factions.
Yeah, if I ever get Holly, on an interview in the snowball's chance in hell that I've got, but if I ever get to speak to her, should I open Ayle with right? So Ayle says Scaram's fucked. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, exactly.
I hear you, though. I hear you.
I mean, like, that's like a major thing, and, like, they generally stay out of it. They let the players deal with it, I feel like. Because it's hard for them to do anything that is, like, really isn't going to break the player's immersion. And, because you merge servers and the shared names, and how do you deal with stuff like that? Or, it becomes like a major, like, quagmire. So, I don't know. It's an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, I think, in this case. And, like, unfortunately, we're already past that. So, what's going to happen? That also, and, like, the botting and the gold inflation that's happened,
right.
Speaking of fuck servers, I played on Whitemane a little bit. I have a paladin over there. I forgot to transfer it with the Lionheart Guild, so it's abandoned. And their server is just destroyed. The prices of everything are double, triple the cost because all that's ran on that server are GDKPs, right? And because of that, guilds actually can't recruit either. I'm in there. People, like, I have a paladin. People are like, hey, can you raid? I have no gear. They're like, do you want to come raid with us? Please come raid with us. We'll give you gear. We can't get anybody to go because all they do is do, like, GDKPs, and the gold buying and everything is just out of control. And so, like, I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll go buy some raid consumes and see. I'm like, I can't afford any of this stuff. It's like the prices are insane. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I like, my only solution is to farm or buy gold to do anything there, right? Because I haven't played there while this inflation happened, and it's absolutely overrun with farmers, and it's a really messed up server. It's insane, actually. Yeah.
It's one of my least favorite things for sure with Classic is look, I've got nothing wrong with GDKPs. It's more the prevalence of them that sort of gets my goat. But, on top of that, it's, I'm in a lot of, as you guys will be, I'm in a lot of different Discords advertising soft res runs, advertising GDKP runs and things like that. And I get the notifications all the time. And look, it's all fun to be tongue in cheek and, it's not like I don't have a fucking sense of humor, but, I get the open jokes about, come to our GDKP and spend your air quotes hard earned cash with us. You know what I mean? And I just hate that gold buying has become something that we're now openly talking about. And it's so, rife within the community that it's not even a joke anymore. It's not even like the dark web. It's out in the open. People know about it. People talk about it. Everyone seems to know people that fucking do it. And it's become almost passé, which is such a shame to me.
It's really sad because it is the opposite of the spirit of Classic that everybody claimed that they wanted. Like, everybody wanted, a game where if you work a little bit harder, you can be, one of those people who gets to raid Nax. And then somewhere along the line, everyone decided, like, oh no, I'll just buy the gold so that I can buy the gear. And, like, some people are complaining about the paying to, boost to 58. And it's like, well, yeah, but half of the people on any given server literally bought their way to their current gear. So, like, It's a little disheartening that it is as prevalent as it is.
I've got to say, and I'm being 100% honest with you guys when I say this, I haven't even almost considered it. I have never been to a gold buying website. I don't even know the fucking where to go if I wanted to. I'm sure you could find out pretty easily, but like, I can afford it. I can fucking afford it. I know it's dog shit cheap, and you know, it's not like I don't have a little bit of cash up my sleeve, but I just never consider it ever. And like, it's not that I don't know. It's not that I would call someone necessarily the devil for having bought it in Classic, even though I am very much so against it myself. Like I say, it's become this like scourge in the community that everyone else sort of seems to be slapping each other on the back like, it's one of those things that happens. So you bought a few thousand gold, whatever it happens, we all trip over sometimes. And I just feel funny about it. And I'm just saying, I've just never had that feeling myself.
I'm with you, Josh, and I think part of why I've never gone for it is like I had a Game Genie as a kid, and yeah, with a Game Genie, I beat a lot of games, but it never felt like anything. So if I'm just gonna buy everything in WoW, then it doesn't feel like anything. You know, we downed KT, and I take pride in that because every single consumable that I used, I farmed for. You know, it's an accomplishment to me in that regards. If I just bought the gold, it wouldn't feel like anything.
Ayle's gone very quiet because he's bought all the gold, haven't you, Ayle?
No, I've been like, maybe I'm too pure, but I've been farming like the auction house, flipping things. Like that's how I've been making money, but like it's an arms race, right? And honestly, I'm probably way behind. Like I might even be priced out. I've saved up like 10K or something for TBC. Like that might not even be enough to do what I want to do because the prices of things are just going to be absolutely insane. And if you can buy like 1,000 gold for $15, like what's going to stop those people that don't have the same, morals or, wanting to play the game the same manner I do?
Or just have way too much money.
Anyway, guys, I've done a bad and I've dragged us off topic. I do apologize for that. But look, we'll just do the wrap up now. Final chance, vent about anything or cheer about anything you heard from Blizzconline.
Stoked about pretty much everything that's been announced. Super excited for TBC. Just my final thoughts.
Very good, very good.
Can't wait to be a nerd in the beta.
I am cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, no, honestly, I feel the same way. I feel like a lot of what they announced is pretty good. I the same thing, though. I'm cautiously optimistic because I don't want the pendulum to swing too far the other way. And, like you said, we all wanted batching, apparently, and see how that turned out, and among other things. So I hope they use a bit of caution with it and still stay as true as they can to the TBC spirit. But besides that, very happy with the announcement. Everything seems great. I'm really excited.
Final point while I think of it. Was anyone really shitty that we didn't get a release date or didn't particularly care? Because I was surprised at how little I cared. I mean, don't get me wrong. I wanted one and I still want one. But I wasn't like, throwing my monitor out the window or anything that they didn't give us a date.
It being Blizzard, I'm not surprised that they didn't give us a date.
I'm very surprised that we didn't get at least some sort of a beta or a demo or something to go with this. That does have me a bit concerned that it might be further off than people think.
Well, I think they doubled down this morning and said something like, no, the beta is coming very soon.
Oh, they did. Okay.
Yeah,
I missed everything this morning, so I need to go back and watch that at some point.
I think they might just not want to. It is way worse if you give us a date and then you have to delay it, right? Then rumors just start going wild. So I think it's a way to kind of like cover their asses a little bit.
Well, yeah. Is this a trickle down effect from Cyberpunk? Will we see more of this through the industry?
It might be. It might also just be timelines being thrown off due to the pandemic. I think that's entirely reasonable as well.
Fair enough. All right, guys. Look, let's wrap it up there. I won't keep you any later. Thank you so much for taking part in all this. I really appreciate you doubling down on the Warrior call and then also this call. And we shall talk to you all later. Thank you so much, Marrow.
Thank you, Josh. Really glad to have had this opportunity.
Absolutely. You'll be back for the Warrior call, mate, with the players. I can't wait for that one.
Oh, yeah. Super stoked on that.
Absolutely. Sarbara, mate, shout out to Lionface.
Yeah, hell yeah. Lionface ho. And thanks for having me here, Josh. I love talking Warcraft. Always fun.
That's the way, mate. And Buffhead. How many ways can I say I love you?
One more at least.
Oh, I love you, mate. All right. That's it for today, everyone. Thank you so much for listening into all of that. I've no doubt there's going to be many, many more reactions coming to a lot more information that we're going to get further down the track. And I look forward to breaking all of that down with you and with the community as we receive it. So look, it's a really exciting time. Obviously, everyone finally got the confirmation. We don't have to sort of dance around this weird will they, won't they, even though we all know they will kind of topic that we've been doing over the last few months. And now I can sort of start to reach out to more and more guests. I will try and get some more former employees on the show, try and get some more industry figures in to discuss the game if they can. And we'll just see where it takes us. So now that it's official, we'll try and spread our wings a bit here on the show. But look, thanks so much for being along for the ride up to this point. Much more to come, and I shall speak to you soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.